Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Mr. Ian Teaches English. I'm Mr. Ian, and today we're going to learn something that is so important in English. I need to just be quiet and let you start learning. So let's jump in. All right, let's talk about phrasal verbs. Now, what are they? Phrasal verbs are at least two words, and they can be any tense. So, present tense phrasal verb, future tense phrasal verb, any tense. It's usually a verb and a preposition. Not always, but most of them are prepositions. For example, give up, work out, or hand over. Sometimes it's a verb with two prepositions. For example, come up with, make up for, stand up with. That is important. You must include all the prepositions necessary for the phrasal verb, or it doesn't make sense. Now, true phrasal verbs are a combination of a verb and one or more prepositions to create a new and different meaning, a verb that has a new and different meaning. For example, work out. Work out means exercise. I work out 4 days a week. I exercise 4 days a week. They are the same. There is no connection in definition between work and out and exercise. That's why phrasal verbs are so hard. Most of the time, there is no connection between the words you use to create the phrasal verb and the definition of the phrasal verb. This is an example of a true phrasal verb. There are other types of verb preposition combinations that can be confused for phrasal verbs, and we're going to look at those in just a minute. Before that, though, phrasal verbs can be separated. Some of them can be separated, and some can't. If they can be separated, you can separate them with nouns or pronouns. They can always be followed by nouns, but not pronouns. So in the example here, I need someone to go and get Mary from school. We're not going to use the verb go and get. We're going to use the phrasal verb pick up, which is very common. You probably use it. In these examples, you can put Mary, the noun, after it, or in the middle. You can separate the phrasal verb with Mary. With the pronoun her, you can put that in the middle, but you cannot put it at the end. This isn't that big of a deal, but this is the grammatical rule. The best way to understand phrasal verbs and to learn about phrasal verbs is being able to identify them. I told you that there are some other combinations that look like phrasal verbs but aren't. The first type are collocations. These are just common verb and preposition connections. The second are verbs with emphasis or with strength. These are verb and adjective or adverb connections that don't change the meaning. The meaning stays the same if you have the preposition after it or if you don't. And finally are phrasal verbs. These are verbs and prepositions that have a new and different meaning. This is very important to understanding phrasal verbs, is that they have this new and different meaning. Now, collocations. Collocations are just combinations that are common in English. They're usually used as connections to another part of the sentence. For example, listen is followed by to, but only if you are continuing the sentence. If you are not continuing the sentence, you don't need the preposition here. I like to listen to music. Without the extra part, you don't need the to, but many times we use this as a connection word. Think about, my mom's thinking. That's okay, that's a good sentence. If you want to continue it, you need to use that collocation. My mom's thinking about dinner. And finally, hey, look at that. We use look and at together. These are collocations, just common verb and preposition combinations. Now, verbs with emphasis. These are verbs with that second word that don't change the meaning. For example, sit down. Sit down has the same definition as sit. So, I haven't sat in hours is the same as I haven't sat down in hours. It's just emphasis to make the verb stronger. Second example, when the teacher comes in the room, we all stand up. Stand and stand up are the same. Now, these are important to know. There's no difference in the meaning, but sometimes one sounds more natural than the other, but they're exactly the same. There's no difference. Now let's talk about true phrasal verbs. These are verbs plus prepositions, not always prepositions, just most of the time, that give a new and different meaning. Most of these have a more academic or dictionary verb that they replace, and usually in spoken or casual English conversation. So stand by means wait. And if you've been to an airport, you've heard this before. Please stand by. It means please wait. Put off means to delay or postpone. The class has been put off until tomorrow. You can replace put off with delay or postpone, and it's exactly the same. Add up is our last example here. Your stories don't add up. I don't believe you. Your stories don't make sense. I don't believe you. But look, there is no connection between the word stand and wait, or put or off and delay, or add and up and make sense. There's no connection here except that everyone just understands it. That's what makes phrasal verbs really difficult and also really important. All right, now let's put these into practice. 12 sentences here. Pause the video, read them carefully, and tell me, are they collocations, are they verbs with emphasis, or are they true phrasal verbs? All right. So number one, he's worried about his new job. This is a collocation. Worry and about just go together very commonly. Number two, I fell down the stairs last week, is emphasis. Fell and down. If you take away down, I fell, it still works. Number three, it's crazy that he turned down the job offer. This is a phrasal verb because turn down has nothing to do with what it means, which is refuse. Number four, grandma's dropping off the kids this morning. This is a phrasal verb. Drop, you're not dropping your kids. All right, this is drop and off, which means to deliver them somewhere, usually by a vehicle. Number five, John sleeping in the other bed. This is just a collocation. Number six, don't speak to me right now. Another collocation, speak to. Number seven, we're going to lay it aside until the next meeting. This is a phrasal verb. Lay aside means to delay or postpone or talk about it later. All right, no connection to the verb lay. The dog isn't allowed to jump up on the couch. This is emphasis. They called off the wedding. Phrasal verb. Call off means to cancel. You're not calling anybody. Number 10, the predator was circling around his prey. This is emphasis, to circle around something. It's just emphasis. Circle already means around. Number 11, I'm waiting for my mom to arrive. This is a collocation, wait for. And number 12, have you caught up with your college roommates? This should be a question, but it is a phrasal verb. All right. Catch up means to communicate after a long time of not doing that. Now that hopefully you can identify phrasal verbs, why is this important? This is really important. I cannot tell you how important this is. Native speakers use phrasal verbs all the time, and if you don't understand what they mean, if you think these verbs mean what they say instead of this other meaning, it can be very confusing. There's almost no connection between the verb and the definition. This is something you just need to learn, like past tense irregular verbs. So memorize them. Also check out my phrasal verb playlist. I put shorts up all the time demonstrating and explaining certain phrasal verbs. And hopefully, with enough time and experience, you'll be able to understand them as well. All right, that's it. Phrasal verbs. Please, please, please check out my shorts. I post different videos about phrasal verbs and definitions, give some sentences, some examples. This takes time. There are hundreds of phrasal verbs that you need to learn in order to be a good, complete English speaker. Take your time. Don't try to learn all the phrasal verbs in one day. Learn them one day at a time, maybe 3 or 4 each week. Try them out, use them in different tenses, but I promise you will begin to hear these all the time. You will begin to have a lot more confidence in speaking English if you can understand phrasal verbs. Thanks again for watching. Don't forget to leave some comments. Tell me what phrasal verbs confuse you. Give me a sentence and I can tell you if it works. Try to use those phrasal verbs here, and I'll see you again next time.